The cause of death was listed as blunt force trauma. The medical examiner disagreed, noting that upon closer inspection, multiple lacerations observed across various parts of the deceased's body were indicative of sharp force injuries rather than blunt trauma. These findings necessitated a reevaluation of the initial examination and subsequent investigative procedures. The toxicological panel was not ordered on the initial examination. That decision was later reviewed in light of these new observations, revealing the necessity to reassess potential substances that could have influenced the deceased's behavior leading up to the incident. Further analysis indicated several deep cuts along the neck and upper torso, suggesting a struggle or defensive wounds sustained during an altercation with a sharp implement, such as a knife or broken glass. The nature and distribution of these lacerations were crucial in determining the sequence of events that led to the deceased's demise. Chapter: Case Background. The incident under investigation occurred on March 14th at a residential address in downtown Seattle. A passerby noticed an open door and signs of disturbance inside the residence, leading to a call to local law enforcement shortly after 2 p.m. Upon arrival, officers found the premises in disarray with furniture overturned and various personal effects scattered throughout the living room. The deceased was discovered lying on the floor in the master bedroom, showing visible injuries consistent with sharp force trauma. Initial responders assumed it could be a burglary gone wrong or possibly an altercation that escalated to violence. There were no signs of forced entry other than the open door, suggesting someone familiar may have been involved. A forensic team was dispatched immediately following the initial report, and further examination confirmed multiple lacerations on the body indicative of sharp force trauma. The sequence of events leading up to the discovery remains unclear due to a lack of security footage or witnesses in the immediate vicinity. Chapter: Initial findings upon arrival at the scene. First responders noted a male adult in a supine position on his back, face up, partially covered by a blanket. The environment was indoors, suggesting an isolated location conducive to privacy and discretion. There were no immediate signs of vehicular or environmental trauma, ruling out accidental causes. Initial observations indicated multiple lacerations across the chest, abdomen, and extremities. These injuries exhibited characteristics consistent with sharp force trauma, including incised wounds with clean edges indicative of a blade's edge. Emergency medical services conducted an initial assessment, but found no vital signs, leading to classification of death as immediate upon arrival. The absence of defensive wounds suggested a potential lack of struggle or sudden incapacitation prior to the infliction of injuries. Given the nature and distribution of lacerations, coupled with the apparent absence of self-inflicted marks, these findings triggered a forensic investigation into homicide or manslaughter. Chapter: Forensic investigation. Upon arrival at the scene, investigators documented a variety of sharp force injuries on the deceased, including multiple lacerations to the neck and torso. A total of 12 separate incisions were meticulously cataloged, ranging in depth from superficial skin damage to deeper tissue penetration. Forensic teams collected swabs for DNA analysis from under fingernails and around the wound sites. Blood spatter patterns indicated defensive maneuvers prior to fatal injuries. Notably absent was any evidence of a struggle within the immediate vicinity, suggesting potential premeditation or dominance over the deceased during the assault. All recovered items were placed in individual bags with unique identifiers, maintaining strict chain of custody protocols throughout transportation and processing at the forensic laboratory. Analysis of the deceased revealed sharp force trauma, characterized by multiple lacerations and incised wounds across various anatomical regions. Forensic pathologists conducted a detailed macroscopic examination, followed by histological analysis to identify patterns indicative of sharp instrument use. Microscopic evaluation confirmed the presence of epithelial cell fragments within wound edges, suggesting abrasion during injury formation. Tissue samples were collected for toxicology screening and DNA profiling. Bloodstain pattern analysis was performed to reconstruct the sequence and nature of inflicted wounds. Specific panels for metal traces and fibers in tissue samples were run. These identified minute metallic particles consistent with a blade edge at concentrations above detection thresholds, further corroborating sharp instrument involvement. Histological sections demonstrated collagen fiber disruption typical of cutting instruments, providing evidence of the type and directionality of force applied during injury infliction. Analysis of sharp force trauma sustained by the deceased revealed a series of lacerations consistent with multiple incisions from a bladed weapon. Forensic evidence collected at the scene, including blood spatter patterns and trace debris on surrounding objects, established a sequence of events indicating initial defensive wounds followed by subsequent offensive strikes. The postmortem interval was estimated using entomological analysis, specifically focusing on insect activity stages found on the body and in the immediate vicinity. This method yielded an approximate time frame consistent with witness statements provided within 24 hours of the incident. Radiologic imaging further corroborated the timeline by identifying the depth and orientation of wounds, suggesting a rapid progression from initial altercation to fatal blows. The timeline confirmed that the sequence of events was likely uninterrupted and contradicted the possibility of secondary trauma occurring post-mortem. The sharp force trauma observed on the deceased's body is characterized by multiple lacerations with clean edges and varying depths, indicative of a single-edged blade. These findings are consistent with defensive wounds noted on both hands, suggesting an altercation prior to death. The pattern and distribution of injuries indicate a struggle, where the weapon was wielded by another individual. Under oath, I would confirm that these lacerations were not self-inflicted, but inflicted upon the deceased by another party during a physical confrontation. The presence of blood spatter on surrounding surfaces provides corroborative evidence supporting the theory of a violent assault leading to death. Interpretive aspects include determining the sequence and nature of individual injuries within the broader context of the attack. Conclusively, forensic analysis confirms that sharp force trauma was the primary cause of death. Chapter: Resolution. Upon thorough analysis of the findings, the primary cause of death for the deceased is determined to be sharp force trauma resulting in extensive lacerations. The evidence collected during the autopsy and corroborated by forensic pathology reveals multiple deep incisions consistent with a bladed weapon's characteristics. Initial assessments indicated potential defensive injuries, but subsequent microscopic examination and comparison with known weapon marks confirmed the presence of specific patterns that match those inflicted by a narrow, sharp-edged implement. Further toxicology reports excluded intoxication as a contributing factor to the deceased's condition during the incident. Radiographic imaging did not reveal any foreign objects embedded in tissue beyond superficial fragments, consistent with blade impact. The final determination was reached after reviewing all forensic data and consulting with specialists who confirmed the weapon's unique signature on the fatal lacerations. The initial assessment speculated multiple assailants due to the variety of wound patterns observed. However, closer analysis indicated a single perpetrator using varied techniques. This revision in interpretation resulted from meticulous scrutiny of trauma distribution and depth, suggesting singular causality rather than multiple actors. Analysis of sharp force trauma reveals meticulous documentation is essential for accurate reconstruction of injury mechanisms. Detailed examination of lacerations provides critical insights into weapon type, inflicted trauma sequence, and possible perpetrator characteristics. The file remains open,